going into it. Tell everybody in the chat just to get it going. All right, so just to kind of catch up on the last question here before the stream died on us again, and everybody that's watching, thanks for hanging with us. Wi-Fi problems here at the DNVR bar. We don't run into these too often, but unfortunately out of our hands. We look at Chris Paul, and you were talking about the impact he had, and I think you're talking similar to Jokic. Early on, you said how he elevates everybody's confidence and comfort, and this is why guys tend to play above their averages, when they're playing alongside him. Chris Paul, I think, very much the same. But if he's hurt, and I mean meaningfully hurt, not just banged up and has to fight through, bumps and bruises, but if he is less than, if he's limited by some of these injuries, how much does that affect who they are?
I don't think we know that answer. I think we know that what I've seen in the evolution of the Suns is Chris Paul's mental toughness on Booker.
Yeah.
I thought Booker, for his first 2 or 3 years in the league, talented as hell, great jump shooter. I didn't like him.
Yeah.
I thought he was goofy. I thought he was superficial. I thought he was too cool. I don't see the same guy this year.
Great point.
I see a different player, a different mentality, and a different face. And all those things are coming out on this stage, and that's, I think, a danger zone. Like everybody said, well, we figured out how to beat McCollum and Lillard. These two guys are a little different. I think Lillard and McCollum kind of play to the three ball and the scoring and putting a big number up. Booker and Paul play to one reason: win the basketball game.
Interesting.
And the competitive nature of this team, and Monty Williams has got to be given a little credit for it. I mean, for years I thought Phoenix was too finesse, too cute, too pretty. This team is not that way. I mean, they got a couple wing guys that play hard, that play really good defense, play kind of smart basketball. And the big kid in the middle, don't say Jokic is going to dominate him. Just remember, this kid is coming, and he'll probably have ups and downs, and Jokic will probably win the battle, but it's not going to be an easy matchup. The thing I would try, I mean, I don't do this very often in coaching basketball. I don't go after guys to get them in foul trouble because I think their backup is bad. I think if they have to go to Kaminsky or go little on Jokic is where you want to go. So I'm not saying I would go out of my way to try to get him in foul trouble, but if he would get one early, I would definitely go out of my way then.
So he's gotten, I think, fouled out once, gotten 5 fouls twice against Jokic over 8 matchups or something like that. I don't know how indicative that is. Nurkic in that series, Jokic drew a lot of fouls on him, but Nurkic also picked up I thought, dumb foul. Every game he had 2 dumb fouls that just happened, not even on Jokic, just doing something dumb.
He fouled out of the game being dumb.
He did foul out of the game being dumb.
Oh, my God.
I'm so impressed with Ayton, and here's my theory on DeAndre Ayton. Jokic, in DeAndre Ayton's second ever game as a rookie, Jokic gave him a 35-point triple-double, 11 for 11 from the field. A perfect, no misses triple-double. And I think DeAndre Ayton, something happened to him in that game where he kind of said, you know what, this vision I want to be as a player, I'm actually changing it. This is the guy I want to be. I think DeAndre Ayton is the first disciple of Jokic, meaning a player who came into the league and everybody said he's Dwight Howard with a jumper and he's this or that. They put these things on him. I think he's evolving into a smart, controlled, under control, high efficiency player, and I wonder how much of that maybe he takes from Jokic is the guy when I came in I felt helpless against. That's the guy I'm going for, not Karl Anthony Towns or any of the DeMarcus Cousins.
Last year I thought he was confusing. He tried to be more of a scorer. I think he's trying to be a great Capella now. I mean, he plays a little bit. He's a role guy. He loves offensive rebounding. He likes to get easy baskets. He doesn't want to make hard baskets.
Right.
So many big guys that drive coaches crazy are the ones that want to touch.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you have a possession that's ugly. What I do now? They want to touch, and then they make the game uglier as the game goes on. And I think Monty Williams and Paul's influence. I see it in him. You can see almost that when he makes a mistake, he knows he already made a mistake before. He doesn't have to be told he made a mistake. He knows he made a mistake.
It's thoughtfulness. And I think that's the thing
Good
with
word.
Jokic. When you watch Jokic play, it's very clear that he plays the game thoughtfully. And a lot of bigs in particular don't. It's a visceral, it's a, going to try to dunk, I'm going to try to be aggressive. And I love that he brought up so many bigs want to make the spectacular play, because I do think that's one of the biggest problems that bigs have is, I want that post up because I'm going to do the shimmy and I'm going to do this. And it's like, man, sometimes the best thing you do is just roll hard or play the dunker. I don't remember who it was. I think it was Kwame Brown. That somebody said he's so good in the dunker, he hates playing it. Almost you have to like really convince him to go down there and play the dunker. And it's like, hey, this is where you average 15 points a game on 5 shots, because you keep getting fouled. And Ayton, I think, has either he had this. I'm not trying to credit Jokic for Ayton's success, but it seems like he has adopted that mentality of being a more thoughtful player, not just a athletic and gifted player. And that's why I'm impressed with him.
Well, Jokic is so simple and so efficient and so basic and fundamental, and you can't speed him up. He's had a more turnover personality this year than ever before, but up until this year, his personality of turnovers was unbelievably good for a man that handles the ball as much as he handles the ball.
Yeah. So in that matchup, what is the key? How does Jokic win that one? Because I agree that it's going to be tough. In the regular season, they posted Jokic up because a lot of their base offenses pick and roll into a post up. In the Portland series, they started getting Denver on the Jokic on the move a little bit more. I thought playing him out, attacking, facing up. I'm curious if he's going to do that against Ayton. But what is the key for Jokic to really make it hard on Ayton in this one?
I have all the confidence in the world. It's just Jokic will figure that out for us. I mean,
it's funny.
I think Jokic's preference would be a little bit in the paint, a little bit on the low block, but more he wants to be the orchestrator. He wants to be the conductor. And so that means more handoffs and pick and rolls and being the trail guy in transition and picking them apart that way. But I think you got to realize that I'm pretty sure this is going to be more of a defensive-minded series than an offensive-minded series. I think we'll have maybe 2 games that could go 120 or 115, 120, 125. But I think you're going to see most of the games be around 110, maybe even lower.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I'm curious with Phoenix because after the All-Star break, they were actually a bottom 10 defense. And I don't know how much of that has to do with that's a smaller sample size. On the year, top 6, 7, something like that.
You're messing with stats, man. You're messing with stats.
That's all I needed to hear. I wonder this all the time. And actually, when I talk to stats people, they tell me the same thing. But, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think they faded a little bit. And that could be because they're young. And, and they could have faded also because they got complacent. They kind of had the second, third place taken care of maybe 6 weeks ago. Before that, I mean, they had to win games, but they didn't have to win a big number of games to sustain getting second place in the conference. The third and fourth seeds were fading, and then they sustained the second seed, and they might have done it playing bad defense every once in a while. And 72 games, 82 game season is a long time to be demanding defensively.
Yeah. It's a great point. I know somebody told me one time Denver, this was earlier in the season, Denver can be a good defensive team when they play as hard as they can, but no team can do that for 72 games. Like, you have to kind of pick your spots, and good defensive teams find a way to be good at 50% as much as they are at 100% fourth quarter defense.
Fourth quarter defense, I think, is where I think we've seen Denver for 2 years now be a great fourth quarter, not maybe one of the top 5 fourth quarter teams in the NBA. And this year they might be number 1.
Really?
I mean, if Murray was playing, I'd say they are number 1. But I mean, and now with the kind of the injuries, they've had to be a little bit more defensive minded in the fourth quarter.
Well, you were mentioning Kawhi Leonard earlier, and part of how he closed out the series was becoming a two-way player again. He's always good defensively in his spots, but I just thought offensively he didn't miss and he was dominant, but defensively he was too. And I thought part of why they won that one was shutting Luka down in the fourth, and a lot of that had to do with just how great he was on ball there. But it's similar, I think, with Jokic. Sometimes he looks really bad defensively in quarters 1 and 2, and I think what player has to carry the offensive load he had? I think he picks his spots.
The man is, I mean, he might be a better defensive player than an offensive player. That's how good he is when he puts his mind to defense.
Who's this?
Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard. Oh, yeah.
I mean, when he puts his mind to taking someone out of the game, I mean, it's the guy's going to shoot a low percentage. He's going to be somewhat intimidated, and I don't think I can tell you the most intimidating thing in the game of basketball is when you can't score.
Yeah, for sure. Who's the X factor in this series? Portland, Denver, or Phoenix, Denver. Let's stay on Denver's side for now. The X factor for Denver.
Well, I think I'm going to throw out Coach Malone.
Oh wow!
I think Coach Malone has got to keep finding the magic. You know, the Porter first quarter, the Monte Morris second quarter, and Austin Rivers in the fourth quarter. I don't know what he's doing right or how the confidence in that huddle, and I know a lot of it's Jokic, but I don't think you're going to be able to say that Porter Jr. is going to be able to play 5 good games in this series.
Okay.
If you get maybe 3, you probably should be happy.
Okay.
Can Austin Rivers throw in 1 or 2? And, you know, the Green kid wins Game 7. His offensive rebounding, in a lot of ways, was on that list of why they won that basketball game. And it's a puzzle for Malone right now. He doesn't know exactly who's going to perform, other than he's confident he's going to go in that game and he's going to find the right guys. Well, it's going to be harder because the team he's playing is going to be better, and they're probably going to be a little more prepared, a little more confident, and the one thing, as I said earlier in the show, this is not a bad defensive team. It might not be a top 5 defensive team like it was statistically, but it can be a really good defensive team.
How tempted would you be? I'm going backwards here because you brought up JaMychal Green closing out that series, and you're right. That was one of the reasons they were able to do it. Portland had 14 points in the fourth quarter of Game 6, the closeout game, and the offensive rebounds, giving second chance points, not letting Portland even get opportunities, not giving Damian Lillard opportunities to make some heroic shots was big. How tempted are you? Because that lineup makes sense to me. Michael Porter, sometimes he's great, sometimes he disappears offensively. Defensively, he's always up and down, always makes mistakes. JaMychal Green's a solid guy. How tempted would you be to try to close games with JaMychal Green based on what you saw in Game 6? Or do you feel like that was a one-off, you're not going to go back to that well in a new round?
If I was advising Coach Malone, I'd let him keep doing what he's doing. He's pushing the buttons, and putting Porter Jr. on the end at the end of the bench. He'll get over that.
Yeah.
And most of the time when you're in the playoffs, you talk about, hey, there's no ego in the game now. We can moan and groan about minutes and shot selection and who's running what play for who during the regular season, but now you just got to trust and believe and cheerlead each other on to be as good as you can be.
And it sounds like Michael Porter was in on it, even telling Coach, hey, leave him in. He's doing great. That unit's doing great. Leave him in. And to me, that's a great credit to the culture if a player can do that. Now, a player probably doesn't feel that way game after game after game, but for one game and you close out, everybody feels great. Everybody feels good about it. What about on Phoenix side? Who's the X factor for Phoenix? Not Booker, not Ayton, not Chris Paul. I'll tell you mine. Cameron Payne. He was great in those closeout games, and I've never been a Cameron Payne believer. He's kind of been a point guard that's always bugged me a little bit, but he was great. Well,
I'm going to say, it's funny, when I was in Sacramento, we loved Cameron Payne. We loved him. We actually were drafting 9, and I was, my guys wanted to move up and get him, we were drafting 6, and our roster was depleted. We needed more players, so we were thinking about moving back.
Oh, okay.
Trading 6 and getting maybe
2 guys, yeah.
Getting 9 and someone else,
yeah, or
9 and someone else in a second. And the organization didn't want to make that move. They wanted to stay at 6. But we really, Cameron Payne was one of the guys that we thought was going to be a player, and he flopped.
Yeah, it took him. He's just now starting to blossom.
Yeah, he didn't make it with 2 or 3 teams.
Right.
Didn't think he could play, and I think Phoenix has given them the confidence. I think the 3-ball and Bridges and Cameron Payne, and maybe another guy coming off their bench. I still know the thing that's knocking me out almost every day in the playoffs right now is the team that blows up the three ball has a huge advantage on winning the basketball game.
It's so predictive. I mean, it really is when you look at it. The one thing, because I see some people say the game has gotten boring to analyze because you just look at the three-pointers and you say, well, they made more threes, they won. They made more threes, they won. The one thing I'll say about that is how teams generate them matters. And, Phoenix is, I think, number one in the NBA, one or two in generating corner three-point shots. And they're number one, I believe, in assists. And assisted corner three-pointer, that's the best three-point shot you can get. And Denver's not necessarily great at defending the three-point line. So to me, that's a battleground that against Portland, Denver really struggled whenever the ball got popping for Portland, and 4 or 5 passes, swing around the horn, find the guy in the corner, he knocks it down. Phoenix is really good at that, and that's the thing that scares me.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And the other thing I think Denver's got to be aware of is don't turn it into a jump shooting game.
Right.
Because Phoenix, that's their forte. They shoot a lot of jump shots. When you got a Booker and they got all these other the perimeter three, Chris Paul is an expert at finding. So don't try to outshoot this team as much as if the paint is there, go there first, be dominant there, and be dominant at the free throw line, and try to keep your turnovers down.
Yeah. This series, the last one we talked about Jokic being exhausted. This one is every other game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 3 days off between game 6 and 7, should there be one, and I like that because to me, that means you get both teams rested and healthy and like, okay, let's see who's going to win. If Denver played Portland, by the way, 36 hours in between games, and they would have played an afternoon game 7 off of a day and a half rest, and I just thought, man, that's the ultimate flip a coin, see what happens. But this one, 3 days rest if you go into that one, but what do you feel like the fatigue factor will be? Chris Paul, like Jokic, likes to play slow, get in the half court, execute, do this or that. So it might be a slow-paced game. There's no Nurkic to really have to wrestle with. As good as Ayton is, physically it's less tiring. A guy 30 pounds lighter. How will the every other day schedule affect the Nuggets, but in particular affect Jokic?
I think it's going to be the mental fatigue, the stress of it. You got 2 games out here on the road. Can Denver get one and then flip the stress factor on Phoenix's side? If you lose the first 2, the stress factor goes on Denver's side, and the confidence goes on Phoenix's side. So I've always felt the first 2 games have a lot of psychological, mental weight, and maybe a little bit more than once you get into the pendulum swinging back and forth, you got to play that game. But the great teams, or like the Michael Jordan teams, very seldom do they ever get into stress games. They get in
once, I think, once went to the game 7 with Indiana.
Right. I think that's the one time I remember where it got really, the pendulum swung back and forth and back and forth. Because I think in some ways both teams are somewhat inexperienced, but they also have a veteran guy in Chris Paul that has been there before. And I don't care what you say, Jokic might be a young player, but he's an old guy. He's an old player.
He is an old player. He does have an old soul even to him. We have questions coming in, Kale? Yeah. Okay. First, though, I just want to ask you, I know we don't always do predictions, but just how are you feeling? Whether you want to give a games and a prediction, or if you just want to say your general sense of this series and how you think it'll go.
I don't like predictions now. I would like to make the prediction after tonight's game. I'd be a lot more confident. I think Phoenix has a lot of advantages, but they don't have Jokic. And so my gut says if the game goes where it doesn't get goofy and crazy one way or the other, I like Jokic figuring it out, and I like Malone pushing the buttons. And I would probably like to get it done in 6.
At home.
Yeah, I'd like to do it at home. Hopefully the building will be hotter and more crazy. And so that basically is saying getting one of these first 2 games is really imperative.
Nuggets fans have been great in this playoffs already. Like when you're watching the broadcast, and I, of course, go back and watch all the games, the Denver crowd is loud. You can tell when a crowd is loud and into it and when they're not. And I thought the Denver crowd has brought it. So I'm kind of, of course, I'm going to be proud of my own people. But I feel like they've done a good job.
There's still got to be asterisks at the bubble and nobody in the building, man.
Well, you know what's funny about it?
Let's get the building where it's really crazy every night.
So somebody told me the building's actually louder with fewer fans in it because bodies absorb sound and like empty chairs reflect it. So I don't. But you are right. Getting that place full, it's even more intimidating. And we're there. I think we're there now at the second round. That was the thing. Is the second round now gets to fill up. Before we get to the questions, this is one thing I've been thinking about. And I apologize to the people that listen to the pod, the other pods that I'm on, or radio. I did a bunch of radio today. I said the same thing, but the more I think about it, the more I kind of believe it. Jokic has now been Jokic in the Nuggets. I don't want it to give it all to Jokic, but I think he gets the lion's share of this. Been in the playoffs now 3 years in a row, 6 playoffs. He's lost 2 of them. One of them was a Game 7 to Portland, and outside of him in that game, the Nuggets were, I think, 0-19 from the three-point line. They make one three-pointer. They beat Portland 2 years ago and go to the Western Conference Finals. They lose last year to LeBron James. They eventually go on to win the title. Every other one, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, come back. Donovan Mitchell, 2 50-point games, 2 40-point games, not enough. You got Damian Lillard, 55-point game, this or that, not enough. I think there's enough evidence now to say beating Jokic is really hard and a lot harder than people think. So when I look at this series, can Phoenix do it? Yes, I'm with you. They have a better team. They have more complete pieces, this or that. But history tells us that beating Jokic takes more than a heroic effort because we've seen heroic efforts fall short.
Well, and what I like about this series, I think there's going to be more process of how to win a championship. I've always believed that the magic of winning it right now. Do you want to bet on who's going to win the NBA championship right now?
No, it's open.
Nobody wants to bet on it right now because I don't think anybody has the magic. And it kind of reminds me of the year Toronto wins it. Everybody was looking at Milwaukee. Everybody was looking at Golden State. Everybody was looking away. And Toronto beats Milwaukee. All of a sudden, they get a little cocky. I think they had a tough series before Milwaukee that gave them, kind of made them grow up a little bit.
Series winner. Bounces on the rim a couple times and drops in. Yeah.
And so I'm just saying these next 2 to 3 weeks, I think you're going to have a better feel for who has the guts
what insight.
And the connection to go win it. And I've always felt this is the best basketball in the world right now. These 8 teams and the matchups, it's the best basketball in the world.
I love it. Hopefully Denver really comes together and like you said, elevates confidence and everything else. I think you learn a lot about yourself in the playoffs and as a team collectively about yourself in the playoffs. And, we'll see which team rises to that.
And let me throw one thing out there because I think this series and the Philadelphia series is telling me as a student of the game of basketball is where the game is going.
Okay.
Because I think Philadelphia has Embiid, and everybody says he's an MVP candidate, and we have and Denver has Jokic. And if you're going to play a big guy and he's going to be a dominant player, I think he's going much more like Jokic than he's going to be like Embiid.
You just made everybody happy. Everybody in the chat's popping right now. I'm sure we just got super chatted. Everybody's feeling so good, man. But I think so too. That's the thing about Jokic is this is why Denver has gone 7, and I just feel like he gets better as it goes on. Is because there's so many. He has so many. His bag of tricks is an endless bag, and he just has to keep. Sometimes it takes a while to find which one's going to work, but there's just some. He just seems to have something for everybody. Whatever you back him into a corner, he has a way out of it, and. I can't say enough things about the guy. Let's go to the comments here, Kale. What do we have before we get out of here?
Yeah, just 4 or 5 today so far.
Okay.
Oh, I'm way too loud. Sorry, everybody. Here's coming in. Can Coach and Adam give us a little bit of a comparison between the Nuggets and Suns benches?
Well, I will say that the Phoenix Suns had the number 1 bench in the regular season. From plus minus. I mean, they outscored when they were on the court. They outscored. So. Unlike Portland, which was a very one-sided bench, they had a great offense and a horrible defensive bench. Portland, much more, I think, versatile, well-rounded, and won those minutes. What do you think, Coach?
I think Denver's done a good job with their bench, even though and Monte Morris right now is playing with as much confidence as I've ever seen him play. The Green kid gave him some rebounding along the way. And I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised by a Barton or someone coming back that we don't know who that is. And Coach Malone has enough courage to play that guy.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be more of a game to game. You're going to say, well, we got beat on the bench. Portland was awful off the bench. They got a game one, they win with their bench playing great, but after that it fell apart.
Yeah,
and actually it was a negative energy for them.
Absolutely. All right, what else, Kel?
Similar line. Who's a bigger X factor for their team, Bridges or Monte Morris?
Ooh, interesting.
I think Bridges is more of a glue guy and a defensive guy and a steal guy and a disruptive guy that can make the three and can have a hot night from the three ball. As where Monte Morris, I think we need him to score points. And that, again, I don't know the defensive matchup, but I know Phoenix has some guys that can be mad dogs at the defensive end of the court. And if I was coaching against Denver right now, I'd be putting a good defender on Monte Morris.
One of the reasons that I wondered about the Portland versus Phoenix, like does Denver get to keep some things with them, was specifically this. Because I thought game 5 and 6, one of the reasons Denver succeeded, especially in the fourth quarter, was Jokic turns into Dirk Nowitzki in the playoffs for whatever reason. He shoots 42% from three. Nurkic trying to freeze that pick-and-roll player and then jump out at Jokic to take away the three-pointer. Monte Morris just did a great job of hesitating and then getting to the basket once Nurkic jumped up. And I think Ayton, one thing I knock him for a little bit defensively is I don't think he's as good outside the paint as he is inside defending. And I wonder if Monte, that same thing, like he's very good at that. Are you going to jump out at him or are you going to guard me? You stay on me, kick it back, open three-pointer. You jump out, I froze you and I get to the basket. And that's the one thing that I think maybe Monte can really have an impact on this series because he was so good in games 5 and 6 with that.
Well, I think what I see in all through the series against Portland was Monte Morris was a poor man's or a decent man's
Wow.
Jamal Murray.
I knew where you were going, yeah.
I mean, the handbacks and the tricks and the back doors, and they were getting it in every game. They were getting cute. And I want you to know, getting cute in a playoff game is hard. And they were getting cute in playoff games.
As Barton, I wonder, too, if he comes back. There's a lot of reasons to be nervous. But, look, Monte Morris and Jokic have been together 4 years. Will Barton and Jokic have been together 6 years. That's the cute stuff. That comes from how many times have they run pick and roll together? I mean, thousands of times. So that's one hope for Barton if he does come back.
And an extra possession and an easy possession in a big-time situation is a very big reward in the game of basketball.
Yeah. What else?
All right. What was the game day atmosphere like in the locker room? Were there a lot of nerves before the tip-off, or was everything pretty calm?
Did you hear him there?
Yeah. I didn't like an intense locker room. I liked it to be loose. I mean, we actually at one time, I don't know, I coached. Where was I coaching? I forget where I was, but I had a chiropractor and a psychologist kind of guy. And we started burning incense in our locker room before playoff games because he said it relaxed you. Yeah. And I remember Stern walked in to our locker room and he looked at, what the hell's that? Because he thought it was not, he didn't think it was incense. Oh,
I gotcha. Yeah, that's hilarious. There you go. That's Kyrie Irving style, it sounds like that's how he is. He's a big incense guy now, so who knows? What else we got, Kel?
All right. Coach Karl, do you have any trash talk about the Suns you want to share?
Any trash talk, huh?
Oh, I had a lot of battles with Phoenix when Gary Payton and Kevin Johnson. And Kevin Johnson and Gary Payton got in really a lot of battles. I lost a Game 7 to the Western Conference Finals to Charles Barkley and Kevin Johnson.
That was an all-timer of the 90s, that series.
Yeah, that was really one of my favorite series. And by the way, Phoenix shot 64 free throws in that Game 7. I always thought, like when Nash was in Phoenix, I probably got more technical fouls called, and when Steve Nash was being kissed by all the referees. And I just remember that Nash had this love affair going on that as a point guard and a defensive point guard, I wanted to trip him or take a charge on him or throw him on the ground and all that stuff. So those are my memories.
It's hilarious.
All right. Who is the best player that never got to play in the NBA?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Little curveball.
Wow.
You got to dig deep for this one. It's interesting now with how many the European leagues. It seems like more of the Euros end up coming over now.
You know, when I was coaching in Europe, I forget the guy's name, but the kid from Brazil that could score points, Oscar Schmidt.
Schmidt, yeah.
That was the guy that was written before. And Oscar Schmidt was with Sabonis and Kukoc and kind of that generation of player. But Oscar Schmidt in the 80s or beat a USA team with a Brazilian team. I think he's from Brazil, but that's a hard one. You'd have to give me a list.
Is Oscar like Pistol Pete like? Is that what it's like, a shooter off the dribble, fancy, just kind of crafty?
He was more of a big guy that could score from the outside.
Okay.
He wasn't 6'10", but he was like 6'7", 6'8", thick, powerful, but also could handle and score from the outside.
Did you ever? I mean, how much did you get to see Sabonis before he came to the NBA? Did you ever get to see him in the prime?
Kicked my butt a lot.
Okay, so tell me about him, because he's the guy that's like the man of mystery. He's almost like Wilt Chamberlain, where nobody seems to know.
I think they should do a special on Sabonis, because Sabonis, people don't realize that Sabonis played a lot on the perimeter until he tore his I think he tore his Achilles up in both knees, both legs, and. If you go and watch the 1988 Olympics when they beat the USA, he's a skinny kid.
Yeah.
He's a tall, skinny kid that could do everything on the basketball court, a little bit like Jokic, but maybe more athletic than Jokic.
7'3" or 7'4", so he's even, he's enormous.
Then he blew up and became this big low-post center. He came. I remember the story I tell is I have no idea why Bob Whitsitt comes to and picks me out of Real Madrid to go coach the Seattle Sonics. But I know I spent 2 weeks before Whitsitt called me. I spent 2 days with Jerry Krause. And Jerry Krause asked me the 2 guys I would recommend to play in the NBA. And I said Tony Kukoc and Sabonis.
Wow.
And, of course, Kukoc was Chicago's property. And then when I left to go back to Seattle, the first thing I told the president of Real Madrid, who I had to ask to get out of my contract, and he asked me, who should we get to win a championship? I said, go get Sabonis.
That's interesting.
And Sabonis played for Real Madrid.
He, by the way, that 88, that was the clean one. That wasn't the controversial one that came a decade before. But that one, I mean, it was older professionals against, amateurs or whatever, but David Robinson was on that one, who I think is one of the most underrated centers of all time and one of the most underrated players of all time. And in that game, Robinson had a good game too, but Sabonis, I think his numbers in that game were something like 25 and 15, and I mean, he was dominant as well.
Sabonis, I mean, someone should do a 60 minutes or a 30-30 on Sabonis, and because now you have the attachment to his son.
Yeah.
Because his son is a damn good player too, by the way. I mean, I know.
Jokic light.
I mean, he's. I love how Indiana plays with him, even though he's maybe not a total, a top 20 player in the NBA, but he's really, really talented.
Yeah. Did we have one more, Kill, or was that it? Last one. Let's hear it.
All right, last one coming in from our guy Yosef. Hey, Coach Karl, if you were coaching against Ayton in the series, how would you coach him in his matchup against Jokic on both sides of the ball?
Not against Ayton. If you were coaching Ayton, how would you advise him?
I would try to get him easy baskets. I try to get him into the game by dunks and lobs.
Yeah.
I would, my trick plays or my plays that I wouldn't want to give him the ball and make him feel like he had to make a good play. I'd want to make the game easier from early to try to get him enthusiastically committed to doing the other things of the game. Because his most important thing is, can he just make Jokic average or good? You don't want Jokic. You don't want the great Jokic. You want the good Jokic.
Yeah, tough to do, man. Tough to do. Maybe impossible. I hope impossible. I want to see another dominant series from Jokic. I do agree it's going to be a lot harder, but you said this last time. I'm going to say it this time. My faith in him is at an all-time high, and with him, he by extension, the Nuggets as a team and organization. So that'll do it today, guys. We're going to be back as we always do. So if you don't know, we do these before the series. We preview them, and then we're going to catch up somewhere in the middle of this series after Game 3, after Game 4, somewhere. We'll have to see how it goes. We'll catch up and then give updated notes about what's happening and try to close it out. But, Coach, this was a good one. This was fun.
Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go, baby. Game tonight. We'll see everybody then.